Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. So do you want to hook up your Raspberry Pi 500 Plus to a bunch of sensors so that it can change the key colors depending on the value of the sensors? Then this is the show for you. So let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin, come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code and have a whole load of fun along the way. Okay, let me just mute that and let's get over to our keynote. Come on, keynote. There we go. Yeah, so this is all about controlling RGB keys on our new Raspberry Pi 500 from some sensors using Node-Red. We'll have a look at how all this sort of fits together. But as a quick recap, I've got one of these on my desk next to me. This is the new Raspberry Pi 500. It's a Raspberry Pi 5 in a keyboard computer form factor, has 16 gigs of RAM. It comes with a 256 gig NVMe SSD built into the keyboard, so you've got that really fast storage, and 256 is plenty for most people. And it has these new Gatron Blue KS33 low profile switches. They're called Gatron Blue, but they're actually grey in colour, but you can actually pull off the keycaps and replace them with another set as long as they're the low profile version. And yes, the most important part of this computer is the fact it has RGB LED backlit keyboard, which is actually RP2040 powered. So you can actually program these keys, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be doing some hacking of this keyboard. So in this project, we're going to connect our Raspberry Pi 500 Plus keyboard to an MQTT server. We'll talk about what that is in a second. This MQTT server will publish messages from our Internet of Things, and it'll publish it, and we have a Python program running on our 500 Plus that can receive those events. And then when we get those events pushed to our MQTT from Node-Red, Node-Red is going to do the kind of intermediate thing of taking these events and then pushing it to the place where the keys will respond to it. So the 500 Plus will then light up its keys in response to those MQTT message events. It sounds very complicated. It's actually really easy to plug all this together. So the Raspberry Pi Python library that comes with the keyboard can actually help us with that. But we'll have a look at exactly how that works in a minute as well, because I've actually not used the Python library because I couldn't get that to work the way I wanted it to work. So I'm actually just doing a bit of hacking. We'll see how that works in a second. So the tech stack for this project, we've got a Python app that's going to be running on the Raspberry Pi 500 Plus. That will actually turn the LED keys on or off, or set all the keys or individual keys. We've then got the Raspberry Pi keyboard config library, which is the thing that does all the telling of the keys, the RP2040 that's underneath the keys to actually turn the RGB LEDs on or off for particular keys. And then we've got an MQTT server. I'll show you how to install one of those as well. It's real quick. And also Node-Red. Node-Red used to come installed on Raspberry Pis, but now it's like an optional install. Really cool piece of Internet of Things technology. So our Python app, this is how it's going to work. We're going to get these MQTT controlled RGB keyboard lighting. We're going to control the Raspberry Pi keys, the lights of the keys, using MQTT messages. There's lots of different methods of doing this. We can set individual keys, the whole keyboard. We can do effects, we can do brightness, presets, the whole thing. And it's quite flexible, our app. It can take RGB values on their own, like R, G, and B. It can do hex values, like where you have the FF0000, for example, for red. You've got hue saturation value, you've got JSON packages, or simply just the color name. We'll have a play with some of those as well in the demo in a minute. And real-time responsive, so because it's listening to MQTT commands, it applies them pretty instantly. It's built on official tools as well, so the RPI keyboard config command line utility is reliable for the hardware control. So that's actually what I'm using rather than the Python library today. It'd be even more responsive if we use the Python library. So what is MQTT, you might ask? We've used this quite a lot on previous projects. So it's a protocol for passing lightweight messages between things. It has this publish and subscribe pattern. So you publish events to a particular topic, which is like a path, and then you can subscribe to that, and you can publish and subscribe from as many different devices as you like, and the MQTT server kind of sits in the middle. So other clients can subscribe to the topic and receive messages posted to those topics, and messages contain what we call a payload, which is the stuff that the values that we're going to be looking for. Very, very simple to implement, and it's all open source as well, which is really, really neat. It's originally developed to control and monitor satellites and oil pipelines by a Brit as well. So this is what Node-Red looks like when you start using Node-Red under the hood. We have these ideas of noodles. We have these little nodes that we can connect together. So all our data from the different sensors can be kind of corralled, probably the best word, by Node-Red, and then we can then make specific events hook up to other activities that we want. So we can build lots of interesting apps, dashboards. We've got a dashboard we were looking at in a minute, data loggers, and more very easily with Node-Red. So you can see there we've got like a robot that can detect faces, push buttons, send telemetry, all that kind of things. We can send all that to our MQTT server. If you've ever used ROS, this is a bit like the message, is it called message queue? It's a similar kind of thing in ROS 2. I know they call it the bag, where they store all these events. You can actually play them back. Anyway, we're not doing that today. We're just going to be using Node-Red. So Node-Red can do the dashboards. It can do, it can send out emails. It can have a database connectivity. It can even output files if you want that to happen. You can also connect MQTT to Homebridge or Home Assistant. Very easy to do that. So you can control all your Apple devices or Google or Android or whatever you've got there. If we've got something like, just seeing if I've got one just to the side of the desk there, a person detector, I think they might call them. It's a kind of essentially a motion detector. You can stick one of these in a room and see if somebody's moving around without it actually being a camera. So it just detects that there's motion in the room. And obviously we can also plug MQTT into if this then that, which is another web service, and you can connect this to things like Zapier and automate everything. So very, very flexible. So this is how the kind of a typical flow works in Node-Red. We have the input node that's going to be controlling some of the messages. So on this one we could have, say, the home/loft, and that's going to get a temperature from my temperature sensor. I think that's an ESP8266 with a little DHT22 temperature sensor hooked up to it. It's been running for years. That can then send those temperature readings every couple of seconds using JSON. It just package it up as a JSON package, and then it will then output that as a message payload. So the payload is the temperature, humidity, and air pressure. We can then graph that in a chart. We can have a look at a little gauge. We can see the temperature and humidity separated out as separate nodes. So this is kind of a typical kind of node flow. We'll have a real play with this in the demo in a second. So if you want to get hold of Node-Red, you can head over to node-red.org. It's available for all platforms. And as it says there, it's a flow-based programming tool originally developed by IBM's Emerging Technologies Services team, and it's now part of the JS Foundation. So data from nodes flows between them from left to right. Each node performs some kind of function, and a collection of nodes is called a flow. So you can have as many different flows as you like. Flows are kind of like tabs on Node-Red. So you can see there we've got the home/loft, which is our temperature sensor. That's then going to flow through a JSON node that will then split out all the different parts of that payload. So we can look at the payload itself. The green one on the right there, that's a debug node, and then the other three are dashboarding nodes. We've got charts, temperature gauges, and humidity gauges as well. We have done a couple of shows on this previously as well, but I thought I'd just cover this just for fullness. So this is what the interface looks like for Node-Red. So you've got the flow tab, you've got the current flow that you're looking at, you've got the palette on the left-hand side of all the different nodes that you can drag into the current flow. You've got the deploy button, so whenever you make a change, you can then deploy it. This just helps with the sort of source code control. You've then got an information panel and also a configuration panel as well. So it's very straightforward to use. If you have an existing Raspberry Pi that's had Node-Red on it previously, it's probably best to update this using this method here. So you do use the curl command and you grab the latest installer. It's likely to be an old version if you do sudo apt install Node-Red, so it's probably best to get it from the source, and you'll get a really right up-to-date version of this. you like what I do and you want me to make more videos like this, please drop this video a like. Drop me a comment if you have a Raspberry Pi 500 Plus. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It means so much to me when people subscribe to the channel. It's the reason I do this, really. And I do go live every single Sunday. So at 7 o'clock British summertime we're currently in. So I shall see you every single Sunday. Right, let's have a bit of a demo, shall we? So let me get over to, I'm just going to go over to me for a second just while I get my screen ready. And what we'll do, we'll go straight over to the Node-Red dashboard. I'll kind of go backwards and show you how all this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to here, share my screen. There we go. So I've got this big thing on the left hand side there. You can see this is the overhead shot of the keyboard. It's just currently running one of the standard animations that comes with the keyboard, and we have this Node-Red dashboard. I'm going to show you how we put this together in a second, but I wanted to kind of show you what it does first of all. So if I hit, for example, the red button there, it will send a message to our keyboard and our keyboard turns red. So this Node-Red dashboard is running on a really old Raspberry Pi 4, I think it is, just behind me in that little cluster there. And the MQTT broker is running on a different Raspberry Pi in that same cluster. So a lot of different Raspberry Pis all working together to make this work. So if I hit blue, we can make that turn blue. If I hit F1, the F1 key, which is the second key from the left, top left. If I hit the escape, we can have the escape key light up. And if we hit green, we can have all the keys light up green. And I've even got a little colour picker here, so if you want hot pink, for example, we can scroll to that and we'll get hot pink as the colour. We can also get like a nice orangey colour as well. All the different things. So I'm not sure how well that comes across on camera there. Let's try a different version of that. Maybe that one's a bit more red than orange. Obviously we've got the blues and the greens as well. There we go, nice aquamarine kind of colour. So how does all this work? This here that you're seeing, this is a Node-Red dashboard, and I've actually got a few other things on here. I've got some other sensors. You can see the loft sensor, it thinks it's about 21 degrees currently. I think the living room one is offline, as is the other gauge at the bottom there. So I probably need to do a bit of work on this. But this is Node-Red, this is the dashboard view of it. So I'm just going to get my notes up there. So let's go over to the kind of behind the scenes of Node-Red, how we actually configure things. I'm just going to turn off that huge keyboard for a second. Oh, actually, I might just move that out of the way. Let's just move that up here and shrink it down a little bit. Just above my head. There we go. Just so we can see what we can do on here. So I've got this this tab, this flow set up, and you can see over here we've got the palettes of all the different nodes that we can have. So that inject node there, if I plop that at the top there, you can see that looks like these are the ones. I'm just going to get rid of that with delete. So if I double click into this red one here, you can see it slides out. So the name of it is red, and in commas red. The payload is simply going to be the word red. I'm going to send this to the topic home/keyboard/LED. So that's a topic that we have a Python program running on the keyboard that's subscribed to this topic, and it's looking for any events. And when it receives an event, the payload, the actual package of information in there, it will receive is the word red. So if I press this little button here, that will trigger that event to happen, and you'll see that our keyboard turns red. I can do the similar kind of thing with green. That will also fire and turn the keyboard green, and again that's just sending a hexadecimal value. So we've got the hash at the beginning, 00FF00. So the first two digits are the red, the second two digits are the green, and the third digits are blue. So you can see there, black, black, full color, black, black, which means we've got RGB, so it's going to be green. You can also see in the other node that we have there, we're also sending the red value, so the RGB values are there in hexadecimal. So if I hit that little button there, that's going to inject into that node, the output node, which is our MQTT node. So if I open up this one, you can see we've got a server set up there, which is running on 192.168.152. This is just running a piece of software that's called Mosquito. Very, very easy to install Mosquito. And that's all we're doing there. We're just sending it to our MQTT server with a particular topic. Now I've got some other things on here. If I scroll down to the bottom, I've installed some Philips Hue Hue Magic, it's called nodes. So we have a motion sensor at the very front door, and that motion sensor can detect what the current temperature is, as well as the humidity, as well as sensing if there's somebody stood at the front door to turn the light on. And Philips Hue actually lets you get all the data from this and feed it into your Node-Red. I've also got this dashboard. This is the official Node-Red dashboard, and you can see there these buttons that have got a little finger on them. If we drag out a little button and we look at this, you say where on the dashboard you want this to go. So I've got lots of different tabs. So it's on the events tab. So if you remember when I was over here, I clicked on that, and there's one that's called events. That's how you can configure that. You can add new ones just by clicking add on there. The label, so the actual label of the button is red, and then down here this is where the actual stuff happens. So when it's clicked, it will send the payload the word red, and it's going to send it to home/keyboard/LED. So it's just like when we did that button up there, but this is a button that's going to be in response to. So if I click that button there, red, our keyboard's already red. There we go. Click green, we get green. So I've got these different things here, and simply if we want to make the escape key, which is very top left, we send this to LED/0,0. So it does a bit like an Excel spreadsheet. It's rows and columns. So 00 means it's the very zeroth, the very top row, and the very first column. So we can actually, if we look at the F1 key, for example, that's the first key along. So 0 columns and 0 rows, and then the first column with the index starting at 0, and it's going to set the key to be red. So that's how we can send all these different things to our MQTT broker. Now this shows about events, sensor events being sent to our keyboard. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to send the current temperature of our door. So the front door sensor, which is a Philips Hue sensor. You do have to do a bit of a ceremony to get this working with the Philips Hue stuff. You have to sort of press the button on the little hub and then quickly come up here and grab the key that you get from that. It's like a little certificate thing. But once you've got all that set up, it will work for years without any problems. So I've now hooked this up here. I need to click on deploy to make this attach. Now it doesn't send this very often, this event, so I'm going to press this button to actually make it fire the event to our MQTT server down here. So what does this color do here? Let's click on this. So I've got these minimum and maximum color, minimum and maximum temperature readings. So between 15 degrees and 40 degrees, 15 degrees will be like the coldest we could ever have it, and then 40 will be the hottest we could have it. We could have this as like -5 to 40, for example, but I just wanted to make the keyboard show like a cold color like blue, for example. So what it then does is it will say let the variable T equal the message payload Celsius. So that front door sensor has Celsius and Fahrenheit, as well as things like the light level and other things as well. So really we only just want to have the Celsius. So if that's a number, we can then save that, and it has a little math function here to just to make sure it works okay, and then a little conversion thing to convert that, to map the value of the temperature to a color value. So we want blue to be the coldest and red to be the hottest, and we want, depending where it sits amongst that. So this whole block of code here is all about just converting RGB values from hue saturation value, because value is nice and easy to say is the kind of brightness. The saturation is how much white or how much solid color is in there, and the hue is the actual color tone itself. So that block of code does that, and then we have this thing here which will format it correctly from the Hue Magic light. As you can see there, brightness is 100, transition, I'm not sure what we need the transition for there, but anyway, there we have the hex value being eventually sent out. So the payload is just the hex value. So all that is to say, when we whatever the temperature of the door is outside is currently, we can actually see that on our keyboard as a kind of visual thermometer. So I'm going to disconnect that now. I'm just going to deploy that without that there. And this is just changing how Node-Red intercepts messages. It's not changing any code on the keyboard, and it's not changing any code on any of the sensors. It's just kind of the middleman. So this other one that we have here is the loft. Now the loft, if I plug this into the debug node up here and I hit deploy, you'll see just behind my head and behind that keyboard, let's just make that hide for a second, you'll see all these little messages appear. So you can see it says payload 20.8, and then there's a whole bunch of other things, but the topic is home loft. So it's doing this about every second. It's just sending out a new temperature reading. You'll see it fluctuates. It's gone up a point to 1 of a degree there. And let's just put that overhead back on. So if I now wire this up, if I connect the loft to this function, which does the exact same thing as the other one did, it's just going to convert between the temperature range. Let's see what we've got here. Well, it actually doesn't do anything on that. Let's just fire this up, let's deploy it, and let's see what happens. So our keyboard should change colour as soon as it gets a new value there. So 20.8. So I think that's still classed as cold. Let's have a see why that is. Let's have a look in here. That one is just going to send straight through. So do I need to copy that code there? Let me just do that. Copy that. Paste this down here, and then let's just route that through instead of through there, like so. We can get rid of that old one. There we go. Because in here we can now say, yeah, the minimum value is 15 and the maximum value is 40. If I now deploy that, the keyboard should then change depending on what that temperature actually is, and it should be the same color as what we've had before. I'm going to show you in a minute or two what that actually looks like on the keyboard as well, but I just wanted to show you how these work. So it's saying there, no temperature found in message, so it's complaining about that. Let's just get rid of all that and just say return message. That's what we had originally. Deploy that and see if it's any happier with that. So I've actually got lots of different flows on here. All my home automation kind of runs through this. We've got things like the weather station. So I've got a weather station attached to the robot lab just outside. We've got things like sensors in the loft, one in the hall, one in the bedroom, the weather hat. All these things will log data in my influx database, as well as just making that information available to other nodes as well. So there's a whole bunch of them. The bathroom fan, that has a node as well. So if the bathroom fan is on, you can turn it on and off from this home automation. You can see that there's 2 different topics for that. One for on and one for off. BurgerBot, we hooked up quite a while ago a BurgerBot to MQTT, so you could actually control it from a dashboard created in Node-Red. I think that dashboard is still on here, even though, yeah, there we go. You could actually make the motors change speed depending on which one of these sliders that you used, and the direction as well. So what's this little graph over here? So this little graph is just the temperature, and you can just see there it's gone from 20.9 and it's falling ever so slightly since I started running this the last time. So you can actually log all the data that you have from these sensors using Node-Red as well, and it was simply just a matter of plugging in. If I go back to that, we just find all the flows. It's the very bottom one, Raspberry Pi 500. You can see this little loft temperature. This is a chart. You can simply just drag one of these charts out, and that's what that represents. You can send emails as well. You can do all kinds of stuff. The other thing that I looked at before, you might have noticed, was a color picker. So I've simply got this color picker so that you can choose what color you want the keys to be. I thought that was quite a fun thing to do. And again, it just sets the hex value of the color and then sends that to home keyboard LED. Cool. So I think that is everything I want to cover off on that one. So I've done that. Yep. Okay, so next up, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the Raspberry Pi 500 itself. So whenever we send one of those commands, this little program that's currently running, and we can actually run this as a service, so it runs in the background. This is actually taking all those events and then changing the keyboard based on that. So if I load up on another computer that same dashboard, let me just do that on a different computer. So that, and then /UI. And I just wanted to show you that it's like, how do I show you the two things at the same time without going backwards and forwards? So if I just head over to here, I'm going to hit the blue button and then try and quickly go back to here. Did I hit the red button? Sorry. So you'll be able to see that on here it's still saying that it's still showing the old message there. I'm just wondering why that is. Let me just go back on there and just do green. There we go. Right, we go back to the Raspberry Pi 500. So this is now running. So I think it's still receiving those messages from the loft. Let me just unplug that. I think that's what's going on there. Yeah, just need to unplug that. And then hit deploy. I just wondered why I was getting that other weird message coming through. There we go, that makes more sense now. Right, so if I go back and I hit the red button on our dashboard, let's hit red. Let's go back to our keyboard. We can see that the keys are red. We can see here that we received a message. If I just move this up here, you can see the sort of debug messages. So received a message, home keyboard LED, the payload was red. It's parsing the colour red, setting all the LEDs to that colour using the command line interface. It uses direct mode to do that. And then you can see there, it's then setting all the LEDs. That's the actual command that you would type on the keyboard itself to do that. And there we go. So but what we can do actually, there we go, we can do it via here. So I've got a browser open on the Raspberry Pi itself. So if I now hit the green button, you'll see the message come through here. So message received, color green, setting all the keys to green. We had that one before when we can either send the text of the word like red, or you can send the hexadecimal value of that. Or you can set individual keys like F1. If we do that, you can see there it says home keyboard LED and then the actual coordinates of the key on there, so 0,1. Or if we do the escape one, you can see that the escape key also lights up just there as well. So pretty cool that we can do this and we can hook all these things up. It might seem really convoluted, but the point is that we can use the keyboard, we can use those RGB LEDs for something that's actually useful rather than it just being kind of a gimmicky thing. We could make it so that if somebody hits a button, you know, in the main house and says your tea's ready, Kevin, get off the keyboard, it could make the keyboard light up red, for example. So we could do this, or we could have different keys representing different sensors that we want to know the events from. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go now to just to the actual code itself, and we'll have a quick look and see how this works in the Python program. So there is a lot of code here, but not all of it is actually being used. I'll show you what's going on here. So we've got a bunch of imports. So we do a lot of JSON stuff in here because Node-Red likes JSON, JavaScript object notation. The operating system, we're bringing in the OS module because we're actually going to be running that command line as if we're typing into Bash directly. We've got the regex, regular expressions thing, that's just to help us, depending what text that we send in that payload, it can either be a JSON object, a hex value, a text string of the word like red, it can be an individual key. So the regex helps us decode all that. Subprocess is how we're actually going to call the command line utility directly, and time we use that just to do a bit of sleeping in between things, just to give the keys time to actually set. So the next important thing on here then is this Paho MQTT client. So we're going to import this client so that we can actually connect to an MQTT server. And then this next line, we don't actually use this in this code. This is how you do it from the Python library. I had all kinds of issues with this when I was doing this earlier today. So the kind of gotchas are, when you are setting up your virtual environment, you have to include the site level packages, the site system packages. If you don't, it won't be able to find this RPI keyboard config. And obviously this only works on Raspberry Pi 500 pluses, because they have this installed by default. So then we have the MQTT host, so 192.168.1.152. That's actually a Docker container running Mosquito on a Raspberry Pi in the cluster behind me. These are always on the same port, 1AA3, and the base root topic is going to be home/keyboard. Everything else sort of hangs off that topic, and topic is just kind of like a channel that we use to talk about between different devices. So we can then set up an instance of the keyboard. Again, we don't actually use that in this main code. I'll show you a bit further down. Then we've got a whole bunch of functions for setting various different effects, keys, and so on. So I'm just going to scroll past a lot of these because I think some of these are not even implemented. I just sort of put them there as placeholders. We've got one for clearing the keys. And you can see here this one that I've said LEDs set old. This is because this was an old function, and it's one we shouldn't be using now for this current live demo. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll right down past all these, and I want to get to the bit where it actually runs the sub process. Here we go. So this one is going to set all the LEDs. This is the actual command in Python that's going to set our keys to whatever value we want. So let's just go to the top of that one there. So we're going to pass in a color, which is going to be a string, and that can be all kinds of different values. It can be red, green, blue, white, black, yellow, and so on. It's going to just make sure that all those are in lowercase because it's just easier to handle that. If it starts with a hash, then that means it's a hex value, so we can convert that directly. If it starts with RGB and then brackets, that means it's an RGB value. And then I think there is another one as well for if it starts with a bracket, it must be a JSON object. And if we can't parse it, we'll just say that it's red. Now the bit that I want to show you down here is this result equals subprocess run. So this is the command how you can actually execute a command line in like a command line terminal command. That's the right way of putting it, within a Python program. So RPI keyboard config, that's the command that we would use on the Raspberry Pi keyboard to set key colors. We pass in LEDs, which means set all the LEDs. Set means that we want to set the color, -C then means this is the color that we want to set. And we've also got capture output, text, and then timeout as well. So that command will actually do the setting. So all we need to do is provide a color to that function, and it will do the rest for us. So let's see what else we've got on here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit further. Let's see what we have that's worth looking at. There's a couple of helper functions like RGB to keyboard, BGR. This was, I was trying to figure out from the Python library, it doesn't handle RGB values in the way that I expected. I think it's because they're blue, green, red rather than red, green, blue. So there's a little function that I created to try and parse that. This is kind of this afternoon's effort to try and get this to work using the Python library. Here we go. So onMessage is the function that we use to receive messages from our MQTT. This is kind of fired whenever a message is received by a topic that we've subscribed to. And these are the kind of example of things that this particular program can handle. So /LED sets the whole keyboard to the color provided. /LED row and column, so that'll set one LED, so we use that for the escape and the function key before in the demo. Clear will clear all the turn off all the LEDs. Brightness will set the value. Remember, we have hue, saturation, and value. We can actually set globally the entire color, and you can actually do that on the keyboard. There's actually this F5 and F6. If I hold on function and press that key there, it should actually lower the value. I think it only works on, if I go back to, why is this now not working? Let's try that. Let's bring the colour value up. There we go, right. So if I press this one, that lowers the color intensity, and that one raises the color intensity. So that's F5 and F6, and that's what happens when you change the hue, saturation, brightness, the brightness value on HSV. The V is the sort of value of the brightness. We can set the hue value instead. We can set the effect, so you know, cycle, spiral, all that kind of stuff. And we've also got the presets. I think this is 0 to 6. I'm sure that there's more presets than that. There's like 44, I think. And then it'll just split the different parts of the topic up with the different, because the path separated by a little / there. Cool. So then we've got, depending on what each of those is, it's going to clear, it's going to change the brightness, it's going to set the hue, and so on. So these little helper things just do the work for us there. And if we scroll down to the very bottom, we can see there that this is just going to create a client for MQTT. It's going to connect to the on connect. So when we very first connect to an MQTT broker, we have a function for doing that, and we've also got this on message, so when a message is received, we can react to it. So it's kind of like a hook for that. And then we actually have to connect to the MQTT, so you need the host and the port and a timeout value, so that's what they are. And then we subscribe to all those different topics, so LED number, clear, brightness, hue, effect, and the presets. And then we then say subscribe to all those things. And that's it. That's how that program actually works. So if I just bring that back up and move that down to the bottom of the screen. So I just need to get my key just there. There we go. And once again, we can go back to that browser and we can hit the green button there, and our keys turn green. And as we did before, we could also go back into that Node-Red, and we could have that hooked into what the outside temperature is and have our keyboard tell us the temperature. So what kind of Internet of Things devices would you want to connect up to your keyboard? Would you have multiple things, one for each different key? How would you go about configuring that? Do let me know in the comments what kind of ideas you've got for that. And if there's anything else you think we should look at with Node-Red, it can do so many things. Cool. So let me jump back, see if there's anything else in that I wanted to cover off. I think that's everything on the demo. Yes, I think we covered off the code that's running on the Raspberry Pi 500. I did say about how to install Node-Red and MQTT. So if I do, I'm on the Raspberry Pi itself here. I'll just clear this terminal. So I have a GitHub repository of all the different Docker containers that I've created. So that is called Clustered Pi. So if you go to github.com/Kevin McAleer/clustered pi, and then you do a git clone of that, you'll get all these different files that are in here. So if I go into my stacks folder, they're all the different Docker containers that I can set up on here. So you can see that we have let's see, the one that I'm looking for in here, Node-Red. So if I go into Node-Red, you'll see there that there's a simple Docker container, and all we need to do on there is just do docker compose up-d, and then that will download all the different parts of that package, and once it's built all those, it will then run Node-Red. We'll be able to access it. It'll tell us what the URL is for that and everything. We can actually look in the Docker compose file itself to see if there's any ports that we've opened for that, but I've kind of done all the hard work, and I know that these just work very reliably. So that's how I would typically run Node-Red. So we could actually run all these things on the Raspberry Pi itself. So I'm just going to hit, actually I might as well let that finish. There we go. So container starting. If I do docker ps, we can now see that there's a Node-Red we started less than a second ago, and that's usually running on port. So if we open up local 000 and then port 1881, I think it is. Let's try 1880. There we go, 1880. And because this is the first time we're logging in, we need some kind of username and password. I don't know if I've set this up before. There we go. there we go, this is Node-Red. This is how it looks out of the box, and it'll talk you through all the different things you need to do there as a kind of help. So I'm just going to close that. And you can even create a new project, have all your code for your nodes and your flows in GitHub, so that any changes that you make, you can capture that as well. So say not right now. So I've actually got a Docker container, sorry, a GitHub repository with all my flows in there as a backup, just in case I want to change anything. But you can see there we can just drag in, let's drag in a MQTT in. Let's do that, plug that into that debug. We could even have, let's do it the other way around as well. We've got an in and an out node, so we can plug in that to the out node. We'd need to set up the MQTT broker. So that one is on 192.168.1.152. I'm going to use a really old version of the broker, connect automatically. Let's see if that works okay. Done. And then on here we can set the payload to be string, and let's just send this to home keyboard, and then the value, let's say, is red. Click done, click deploy. If I press that button, that should send the red value to our MQTT broker, all being well. Have I done something wrong there? Let me just double check. So home keyboard red. I think that's the other way around. It should be red and home keyboard. Try that, deploy that. Confirm deploy. And if I press that, the keyboard should turn red. If I've done it correctly. If I've not, I'll have to spend an hour debugging that very simple piece of code. But you get the idea there. And then we can do the same kind of thing where we can listen to a topic. So if I listen to home keyboard, we'll subscribe to that same topic. So if we go back over here, we click on green, we should actually see in the debug, which is this little thing over here. It says the broker's missing. I need to select which server I'm listening to, which is that one there. Deploy that. Right, so if I hit that, you can see I've sent that message to MQTT. I'm also subscribed to that, and we're putting it to the output, and you can see there that it says red. So in theory that should work, and I can't understand what I've done wrong there, other than maybe there's a typo, something in one of these. /LED maybe. I think it is that. I do that, hit. There we go. So I've just missed off the LED at the end, and we can see there we're capturing that because we're listening to that on there as well. So I press that. I'm running on a different Node-Red instance than the other flow that you were looking at before, but they're talking to the same MQTT server, and therefore the messages get routed just as you like. But you can also hook this up to things like Twitter or email systems. There's so many different aspects that you can connect in and have this do things too. So you can have this save every command that you get out to an Excel sheet, Google sheet, that kind of thing. I think I have one on my other Node-Red instance where every time I send out a tweet on X, it will actually log that onto a Google sheet, like when that happened. Excuse me, just so I can see how many tweets I've done in a particular month, for example. Cool. So that's how we can get that running very easily. And Mosquito is also very, very similar. Very, very easy to get up and running. Do I have a stack for Mosquito? I was pretty sure I did, but if I've not, I'll probably add one on there. I think. Oh, there you go. Eclipse Mosquito. There it is. So if you go into Eclipse, and let's have a look in that Docker file. So this specific one sets up. it installs Mosquito, which is what the name of the image is, Eclipse Mosquito latest. And then I've got 4 or 5 different volumes that I hook this up to because I want it to save various different things so that it will always work the same way. And I also specify a network. I create a network down here in the Docker container, and this basically tells it always to run on this same IP address. So that IP address isn't the same IP address as the Raspberry Pi it's running on, and it means wherever I deploy this to, it will always get that same IP address as the MQTT server. You can see there the ports are also exposed there too. So I can just do docker compose up on that one, and it will bring that up as well. So that's also now running Mosquito. It's probably going to complain about that because there's also another machine on the same with the same IP address. So if I do, is it Mosquito or is it Eclipse? So it's called 731. If I do docker logs 731. Got a few little complaints there. It's mostly just the folders being missing, I think. And then to stop this, you do docker compose down, and that'll bring it down and remove the container. So if I do docker ps, oops, we can see there we've just got Node-Red, MongoDB, and Redis running on there. So if I jump back into that Node-Red one, I can do docker compose down, and it will remove that container. So it tidies itself up afterwards, which is really, really neat. So that's how we can install Node-Red and how we can install Eclipse, Mosquito, which is our MQTT broker. And the code for this is all stored on GitHub. Let's just open that up so I can show you where that is. So if I go to github.com/Kevin McAleer /RPI 500_plus. I think that's it. So the code there, RPI MQTT, that's the code that you've just seen running, which is running just in the browser down there. And it's got some instructions about how to install the virtual environment, including the system site packages as well, which is quite an important thing to know about. So knock yourself out if you want a copy of that. I'll put a link to that in the show description as well. Cool. Let's get back to our slides then. And do I need to just get rid of that overhead as well? There we go. Cool. So, as I said previously, I do go live every single Sunday, 7 o'clock BST. And we do have a Discord server. So if you've not joined our Discord community, you are definitely missing out on some really cool cat pictures. Alex has got some new cats. We went visiting them this week, and they are super, super cute. So I'll definitely have to put some of those pictures on Alex that we took on Saturday. Alex has got a really cute cat called Solaire. But yeah, you'll be able to see them in our Discord server. So head over to kevsrobots.com/Discord to get a sign up link for that. And I'm on all the social medias as well, so at Kevin McAleer at threads.net for threads, for TikTok, Kevin McAleer 6, on Instagram at Kevin McAleer, on X I'm at KevsMac, on Mastodon I'm at KevsMac at mastodon.social, and I'm also on Blue Sky at kevsmac.bsky.social as well. So if you're on any of those platforms and you've not said hi, definitely say hi, reach out to me, and send me a picture of what you're working on. That'd be quite cool. So if you want to join me and help support the channel, you can do that a number of different ways. You can do that by doing a super thanks, a super chat if you're watching this live now. You can join the YouTube membership program, or you can even do a buy me a coffee, which some people have done. So let's give a shout out to those people right now. So over here on the left hand side, we've got all the people who've interacted in some way on the Buy Me a Coffee platform. So Marie-Louise Mayer bought me a coffee very recently. Thank you very much, Marie, for that. We've got a new member, Warren Packard. We've got an anonymous member. We have Silicon Fiber, Marie TKD, Jeff Johnson, DN Corty, Marlene, Brent, and Tom. And then on the YouTube side, we've got Peter Barnes is also a new member. We've got Dale from Hybrid Robotics, Orkrod39, Warren Packard. We have Brian, Pierre Eves, Bert, Marie, Michael, Steve, Ford, Bello, Johnny, Stephen, John Paul, Cassie, Johnny, and of course we have Tom. So thank you all for supporting the channel. It means so much to me that you continue to do that, and it means I can buy awesome things and do awesome things with with all this stuff. One of the things I bought quite recently was something for help making me these videos, which is one of these Insta 360 camera gimbal things. So it's quite neat. You can just press that button there. It'll keep the camera nice and steady, depending on what you're up to. It also has this kind of selfie stick thing as well, which is quite cool. And it has a built-in little stand, which is pretty neat. So it's all compact in there. And then you can just control this just by using this little thumb remote control. So it's pretty neat. And you can even make it go into the other mode as well. And you can even make it tilt just by doing that. So pretty neat. I really like this as a gadget. I did have a previous version of this, which was a DJI version. So these are my old phones. I've got a new phone as well. Got the new iPhone 17 Pro Max. Went for the cosmic orange version. There we go. So just want to pull out that last bit of the tripod there and stick that there. So they help when filming the YouTube channel. Cool. So that is our supporters. Thanks again for supporting the channel. And if we go back now to over here, a little bit laggy. I'm not sure what's going on there. So the spinny logo tells me it's this point in the video where YouTube will be recommending a video over here for you to watch. Definitely check out that video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I shall see you all next time.